But then I read in the Bible that where God called Moses away from his loved ones and all that was dear to him and sent him into the wilderness to write the laws of the Bible. That was the Old Testament, the first 4 books, Genesis, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy, and Exodus. I never said them just in routine, but that's 4 books. That really is the Old Testament, because the rest of it was what the prophets said in the Psalms of David and so forth, but the Chronicles of the Kings. But this was the fundamental of the Old Testament, was Moses wrote them after he was called from his homeland, where he had been born and brought up among his people, and was sent into the desert to write this book of the Old Testament. Then I find that in the book of the New Testament, where Paul, which is the author, or not the author, but the writer of the New Testament, he also was drove out from among his people and by the Spirit into the Arabia, where he was 3.5 years to find the inspiration, and Paul is the chief writer of the New Testament.
Amen.
Now there's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, but they were scribes that just wrote what Jesus said as they followed him along. But you take the book to Timothy and to the Romans and to the Hebrews and so forth, Paul received inspiration to write the New Testament, taking all the Old Testament as a shadow and setting it in order, and God honored it and made it the New Testament. And now, if the Old Testament had to be drove from the writer had to be drove from his people into the wilderness to get inspiration to write the Old Testament, and in the New Testament, the writer was drove by the author into a desert place to get the inspiration to write the New Testament, and the books are sealed with 7 seals. It would also require the same, I believe, in these days to open those 7 seals.
Amen.
Believe what you hold dear, to what you cherish. A little home that was given me by the people, and amongst all my people and friends, and a church that was flourishing and had nothing lacking, and to leave that, pull right away from it and move away out into a desert where you knew nobody and everything against you. But there's something about God that He drives a man to do things that's beyond any thinking of his own, so it can be to the glory and honor of God. And I feel that, not self-honor, but I feel the privilege it was to leave everything that was called dear to me.
Amen.
To get here into this wilderness and suffer like I have never suffered in my life here in this wilderness or this desert. But I believe that in doing that and obeying what God commanded to be done, God has opened to us the mysteries of this last day.
Amen.
And we are here with this message.